do not see audio adjusting.
It should be
Test.
okay. It should work.
1, 2, there, it's moving. If you are watching this right now, this is a recorded live stream. So, yeah. Show's officially starting in a few minutes. We are just manually resharing right now.
Yeah, sorry about that. We're gonna. Oops, that's wrong.
Okay, there, I can see it.
Getting the show on the road.
Resharing to our mailing list.
Baduy.
YouTube.
Boop, 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 boop. Yep. Okay. And then the previous echo variants are gone. What a weird day. And it boosted. Yeah. So for people as they're just coming in, yeah, we this is actually our third time to go live tonight, but the previous times restream was only connecting to YouTube for some reason. So we couldn't get the Facebook one to load, so I had to disconnect and reconnect because when in doubt, restart the thing. It is the restream equivalent of turning it on and off. And that seems to have worked, although it does say that my Facebook profile is unknown. I guess it will adopt the credentials next time. If you're watching this in the future, this is a live stream, so we give time for people to join, and then we'll talk about today's discussion. On Thursdays, we try to talk more about geeky things, fandoms, shows we like, franchises, and that's what we're talking about today. Waha! I hope the mic's working. My mic's working, right? That's the other. So we have two main technical issues that seem to recur. One is we lose our mic, and then even though it's like, yeah, and the other is connection issues for one or more platforms. I mean, otherwise, I mean, we're not paying for our restream subscription, so we probably could get better support if we upgraded to a premium account.
Yeah, but
we're also not making money.
It doesn't feel like investing on it if it keeps erroring out.
Yes, there is that. Like, I don't know if that'll be better. Thanks, Mitch, for confirming that she can hear us. Yay. Okay.
I guess we can officially start.
Oops. Yeah, slow down. Buy me time. the restarting, reconnecting disrupted my chi. All right, my chi is flowing now. Okay. Well, what? What are you? What is that? What is that? All right, we'll roll credits and then we'll start the live discussion. Give us a moment.
Oh yeah! Right.
This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It's completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. Tonight, we are talking about the Fantastic Four. Since we usually do fandoms and stuff for Thursdays, we
Mhm.
thought it best we talk about this group, given all the rumors of their
Well, there is gonna be a
casting.
movie.
Well, the
The
casting.
casting rumors.
Given
Okay,
all the
okay.
casting rumors for their upcoming appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
Mm-hmm.
we thought it would be best to talk about them.
I have not looked at those casting things because I'm just gonna wait.
Same.
Okay, so we have nothing to talk about on that point. Great job. So we're gonna talk about the franchise as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
and at least, our exposure is definitely more on the comic book side, but there are a few other things that have happened and some very unique interpretations of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, the Fantastic Four is actually often called Marvel's first family. Have
Mm-hmm.
you heard that
Yeah.
term? Yeah. So I was looking up, like, refreshing, like, why exactly is that? And true, they are literally
A family.
they're one of the first families of superheroes ever depicted in Marvel comics, at least, because there's like
I feel
other
I
family
feel
groups.
the nickname or the appellation came from so you know how they're calling Namor the first mutant,
Mm,
Captain America the first Avenger, and all
okay.
this and that. So I think it just falls under that where they wanted to give it a marketing spin.
Oh, but interestingly, a lot of some of the other stuff I was reading earlier cite that it's also because it heralded the beginning of the silver age of comics for
Mm,
Marvel,
mm,
and a significant shift in the way they approach comics.
true.
So it was one of the big ones. All right. So Toby, what can we share about the origins, or could you say the definition of the Fantastic Four?
So first introduced in the 60s,
Mm.
the legends say that um, one of the comic book publishers was playing golf with a rival,
Mm.
basically from another company. And there was a lot of discussions and bragging about how one had a very successful line over the other.
Mm.
And
Mm.
given that, there was the challenge then to come up with a team that would go against them. And since the other company had a team of superheroes, why not make also a book that had a team?
Okay.
Of course,
Okay.
to give it a spin, that's when they decided to try to have something that was closer to a family. Um, Other stories involve a different team having been created before, and that's serving as a template. But of course, all these are rumors, and it's hard to tell who's telling what.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Similar stories are said about X-Men, about this and that. So I guess we can stick to at least what is commonly accepted, and that we of course have Kirby present as one of the big names in the creation of the Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. As well as his creation of Challengers of the Unknown. It's so hard. And then the iconic circular design with the number four logo was supposedly designed by Stanley.
Okay.
So, with all those conflicting comments, I guess it's safe to say that come 1961, Fantastic Four first appears as a team of four adventurers, three men and a woman, led, um, whose journey basically takes them to space, and that's where their transformation happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of arguments as to who really created more in terms of the thing, but long story short, Fantastic Four number one becomes an unexpected success, and it does lead to, well, as you can say, the silver age when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
Marvel comics. It was even in that comic line that many other um, creations grace the Marvel comic universe, including Namor, the Submariner, the anti-hero who in many ways is also considered the first mutant.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Doctor Doom.
Yay! Mitch says if Fantastic Four is the first family, is X-Men the first school? Point.
Hard to
There's a point.
say because during the pulp era, there were
Okay.
a lot of academe school related stories of this and that. So
Yeah, but still, like, this is like literally a school for super enabled, like, individuals. I don't know. It's a cute little moniker. We'll
Mhm.
run with it, Mitch. Great idea. Okay, so yeah, so again, let's then make it a little more conventional then. So how do you remember first like encountering the Fantastic Four?
So my first encounters with the Fantastic Four was thanks to the penchant for Marvel Comics to have story arcs that cross titles.
Okay.
Um, Given my earlier years in comics was mostly New Mutants, X Men, X Factor. It was only in these massive crossovers that I started to encounter the Fantastic Four.
That's true. I think as much as I knew who they were,
Mhm.
it was like the big crossover
And
events.
they'd always come in because they're the smart ones who
Yeah.
will have to, Reed will have to explain what's going on, and then the Thing would be clamoring to fight, and then Human Torch would be joking around, and then Sue was just Sue. It wasn't until the later Fantastic Four comics where Sue starts to even have a more leadership role because, from simply turning invisible, they turned her into this powerhouse we're in. Now it was invisible globes that were force fields, and suddenly she could shape the force fields. So they were,
Inside your brain.
yeah, or they were basically telekinesis now in an invisible form.
It wasn't even it was like literal constructs.
Yeah,
Like
and it was odd because telekinesis was never visible anyway. So
that's true. But then, they always had like her making essentially stepping discs
yeah, but
and rods and whatnot.
but it even reached a point she'd pick up stuff and she'd bring it to her
Yeah, which is
because
like
supposedly she'll create this field that picks it up or something.
Okay, Mitch asked, how did they get their powers? Is it consistent with the movie? Always get infused with the reboot. And to be fair, there have been at least two major movies with like different approaches.
So I
But
don't know if it's accurate, but according to Wikipedia, there have been 4 animated series and 4 live action films.
ooh,
So that's an interesting
ooh.
little
No, I
trivia.
can believe that because it's not just franchises. There was there's the Super Hokey Fantastic Four movie.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was the Chris Evans reboot, but that
Mm.
got a sequel, so that's
Mm.
3. And then there's Fantastic Four.
Yes.
So there have been 4. And then animated, I totally get it because there was like the original Hanna-Barbera, and
Mm-hmm.
then the one that had Herbie for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
and and then there was the late 90s 2001. So yeah, there's a lot. But in general, the classic origin story is that uh, they decide to go on. They're testing this new rocket of Reed's a
I'm not.
little earlier
I'm
than
not
it
sure
should have.
if the testing was the original or the race to beat the Russians. Because there was the we have to beat the Russians and go to space first. And then there was the we need to test the rocket and the government did allow us. So I'm not sure which of the two was the real primary origin.
Okay, if you look at the Marvel wiki, which is
Mhm.
Marvel fandom, but it's still a fan wiki. Um, so Reed
Unauthorized
Richards,
test flight.
yeah. So I always get this: the unauthorized test flight using an experimental faster than light rocket named the Marvel One, and then his plan was to visit an Earth-like planet in a star system 44 light years away.
Mhm.
But because Reed's financiers were beginning to lose interest, then they decide we'll do the test flight early.
Oh, here you go. So the first issue, the original synopsis was to fly to Mars, which I guess later changed to the
Yeah.
44 light years away. But then it was an afterward change to make it the rate the communists are progressing in space. Maybe we make better this flight to the stars instead of just to Mars. Because by the time this mag goes on sale, the Russians may have already made the flight to Mars. So
So
there
there
was
was
that
definitely
little
a
aspect.
reflection of
Mm.
that. Yeah, but I remember in the different iterations, it's just been uh, test flight
Mhm.
racing
Mhm.
because in the recent Fantastic Four run, they revived the Marvel One rocket
Mhm.
and and then they bring in that stupid star system 44 light years away. But
Mhm.
that's a brand new, that's a new, very
Yeah.
new story. So anyway,
The
oh
rocket flies.
yeah, sorry, and Jay's here. Hello, Jay.
They go through cosmic radiation.
And in his haste, Reed had forgotten the cosmic radiation shielding,
Mhm.
and they were all like uh, doing things at the time and like Reed was trying to reach for Sue. He couldn't find Sue or couldn't see Sue and whatever. I mean, there were all these things. There were all these things that contrived to eventually they crash land back on Earth,
Mhm.
and then they discover that their exposure to cosmic rays has given them
Mhm.
new abilities that may or may not seem to represent the four traditional elements of story because
Mhm.
the thing is very Earth.
Mhm.
Of course, Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, is literally fire.
Mhm.
Uh, Reed could bend and twist into anything, so he's kind of watery,
Mhm.
and then Sue turns invisible, so kind of air.
Mhm.
It's just like okay. I mean, I can get how the pitch worked, and we
Mhm.
got to this point.
No similarities to Challengers of the Unknown.
No, none at all. Funnily, because I've been like slowly trying to read the
Mhm.
original What If comics. In the first volume of What If, when by volume that's about the within the first 6 issues, I forget which one. They literally did a What If the Fantastic Four got different powers, and they had them asserting themselves in different ways at the point of the incident, which includes ridiculous things like Reed Richards mutating into a floating giant brain because
Mhm.
Ben kept calling him "Hey, big brain," and that's what he became. And then Johnny became a robot. Uh, I don't know why Ben developed demon wings. They were really like giant bat wings. And then, oh my god, what was Sue's power in that one? I can't remember what her ability was, but it was just weird. So there was really stressing about the cosmic rays reflected like what they were
Mhm.
feeling at the time. It's a whole thing.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, Interestingly, the Fantastic Four, though, is one of those hero groups where from the very beginning they did not have secret identities.
Yes.
They didn't have secret identities, and then what more? They were the first to get a building, and it literally was this constant reminder of where they were because the Baxter building, as it was called,
Mhm.
had a giant four on the top, and it was a four on each side of the building, so there were four fours.
So that was quite a beautiful design from
It's a
way back.
great building.
Mhm.
It's so cheesy. And I love the fact though that remember the building is technically the Baxter building. It is
Mhm.
not the Fantastic Four building. They are tenants. They are tenants who own like they're on the top floors of the building. But there are literally other offices in the
Mhm.
Baxter building. And I don't know what life is like. Their insurance premiums must have been terrible given all the dangers they face.
Which eventually was a different comic line that got spun out from Marvel,
Mm.
inspired by the idea of all the damage being caused by these heroes.
And I remember there was like one or I forgot what Fantastic Four comic was where the tenants complained and they were like trying to get them evicted out of the
Mhm.
building. Funny things. So yeah, so the Fantastic Four building, the Baxter building, is not entirely just the Fantastic Four, as far as I remember. So it's funny. All right. Um, Okay, so yeah, so we both talked about like we tend to see them in crossover events. I think what was like most notable to me was like the beginning of Infinity War, if
Mhm.
people remember that. And Infinity War comes after the Infinity Gauntlet comic book.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, there was this serious like division of labor, like what was this? Because all the mystics got together to
Mhm.
do something. Because you had like Scarlet Witch and Doctor Voodoo and whatnot, and then Reed ends up traveling around with Galactus
Mhm.
because he needed someone smart or something, and it was just funny that there was this weird segregation. So and that was like normally Reed's role in these big crossover events, like between him and Tony Stark, it was all the thinking, but Tony was still, in a way, more an engineer, whereas Reed was a theoretician, and then he would come up with the big concept stuff. Um, and the other people they would tend to pair them with are like Hank Pym, and then
Mhm.
sometimes the Beast for biological sciences.
Now that's just talking about the characters that joined the Fantastic Four in their adventures and their stories. We're not even talking about the characters who became members of the Fantastic Four throughout its run.
Yeah.
Because
Is there a good history we can
because a
find?
large part of the comic line was always the challenge of what happens if the team up or the membership changes. And this was explored in many different story arcs, um, with some having, let's see what will happen if Sue was in charge. Others being, what if one of them chose to leave the membership, or
Mm-hmm.
one of them decided to leave because they got angry. Um, there,
Aren't they all Illuminati? No.
there were even story arcs wherein there were more than four of them, despite still being called the Fantastic Four.
Oh yes, yes. It's funny that way. I'm trying to find a good list. All right, all right. So, um, I don't think I can find a good chronological list, between the different members of the Fantastic Four. But just for example, um, so at one point, which is definitely Medusa has been a member of the
Mhm,
Fantastic Four. She is the wife of Black Bolt. She is Queen of the Inhumans, but
mhm.
she has been a member of the Fantastic Four.
Likewise, Crystal,
Oh
the
yes,
younger sister of Medusa, was a member of the Fantastic Four.
and a
She
love
was the
interest for
she was
Johnny.
the replacement of Sue Richards when she was pregnant with Franklin.
Mm.
You have Luke Cage,
Now I didn't catch that.
then called Power Man.
Ugh.
Superhero for hire, husband of Jessica Jones, was hired by Mr. Fantastic to serve as a member when the Thing lost his powers.
Which is a okay. That was a recurring problem. The
Mm.
Thing's powers would disappear here now and then.
We have the Human Torch, Frankie Ray, who later becomes known as Nova when she becomes one of the Heralds of Galactus.
Oh, I didn't encounter her before she became Nova, but I knew they had a deep connection.
because she was the stepdaughter of Phineas Horton, who was the creator of the original Human Torch, the robot, sorry, android, not robot. the
Yes, yes,
android.
because he had feelings and thoughts, Yeah, the one-time invader.
There's Miss Marvel, one of the earlier Miss Marvel characters,
Yeah.
who later becomes called She Thing. But then there was a point in time where she decides to be known as Sharon Ventura, which is her name, and not She Thing.
Wasn't there a time like she was just walking around in a thing suit?
Yeah,
Okay, but we skipped over She-Hulk,
yes.
who was also a member of the Fantastic Four, and I think one of the more prominent ones. And she had like the sexy singlet
Mhm.
uniform because she would like be in Hulk form already.
Then of course you have Ant-Man, Scott Lang, who became one of the members when Reed Richards was presumed dead. We have Namorita, the cousin of Namor, former girlfriend of the Human Torch.
Okay.
And there'll be a lot of
There's a lot of former
girlfriends
girlfriends of the Human Torch. Okay.
She joins when there's a mission to the negative zone to try to rescue Reed, Sue, and Ben. Aurora Monroe, or Storm, the Queen of Wakanda,
Together
also
with Black Panther.
becomes a member of the Fantastic Four with Black Panther. Powerhouse, also known as Franklin Richards, does become a member at some point when he is. Brainstorm, or Valerie Richards, is a member as well.
Those names didn't quite stick.
Flux, or Dennis Sykes,
Sykes.
was a member to join and stop Ego, the Living Planet. Spider-Man, of course, became a member. There is the Mrs. Thing, which is the one in the Thing suit, which is different from Sharon Ventura, which is also a thing.
And she was more prominent in the later on in the Silver Surfer run.
The Mike Allred run. What I'm surprised is not listed here was the alternate Fantastic
Because
Four.
these are members of. What
Yeah.
you need is the new Fantastic Four, which was different, right? And official listing of that team
Here, so it's the Hulk,
Gray
which
Hulk.
is the Gray Hulk, Mr. Fix-It.
Yes.
You have Spider-Man, you have Wolverine, and you have the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider.
Because there's more than one Ghost Rider.
Mhm.
And so and that was a weird theme, which seemed a lot more violent.
Because it was when a female Skrull agent captured the real team and then impersonated Invisible Woman, falsely reported to the team the deaths of the original team, and tries to have them steal an item from Mole Man.
So needless to say that membership in the Fantastic Four has been rather fluid over the years.
Wait, it gets weirder. There was the team that was composed of Venom, Red Hulk, X-23, and the other Ghost Rider.
Oh. Oh, Alejandra Jones. I don't
This
know
was a
this
second
one.
team that appeared in the Venom series. And then you have the other one we're in. You now have Silk, Hulk, Wolverine, and another Ghost Rider,
Robbie
Robbie
Reyes.
Reyes. So yeah, and we haven't even gotten to the Fantastic Five group.
Okay. So it's needlessly strange. And they've been very committed to their number 4
Mhm.
number, even though like because currently it is your traditional Fantastic Four, the full family unit. So it has
Mhm.
Valeria and Franklin, who are still like participating in the adventures, but it doesn't change the fact that the team is called the Fantastic
Mhm.
Four. And then Herbie, for what started out as a weird cartoon aberration that replaced the Human Torch in the cartoon,
Mhm.
eventually entered the comics and then sort of became a thing, but
Yes.
not as full a character as he was in the cartoon.
Other supporting cast members for the main group include Agatha Harkness,
But not like a Fantastic Four, but like a
yeah,
recurring personality.
Alicia Masters, who
Oh,
was another relationship um, story arc with the Thing, and depending on what story arc you follow, did or did not marry him.
and may have had a was this a love triangle sort of moment because of Johnny,
Yes.
because Johnny hit on anything, and she
You
was
know,
the daughter of
the
the puppet
Inhumans,
master.
of course, were a big supporting cast for any Fantastic Four stories. But then you also had the Atlantean side of things, which is basically Namor, Namorita,
Namorita.
and all that jazz. And then you had the cosmic level of things, which is Silver Surfer, the Watcher, and all the
Nova.
other space things.
That's true. That's true. They
And
got
then
around.
and then finally you have the Yancey Street, which is the Thing's group of friends.
No, they
Um,
weren't quite his friends, but they were just the modern incarnation of the same gang of bully kids
yes.
that he was also part of when he was a kid. And
Mm.
then, it was just to him to get to be very New York. It is Yancey Street and all
And
these
then
things.
most notably, the Time Variance Authority,
Yeah, yeah.
because the Fantastic Four always had adventures through time in their own way. And that eventually led to the Time Variance Authority
Okay.
being one of the people they kept bumping into.
And I think that just ties to the fact that the Fantastic Four, reflective of the period that they were conceived,
Mhm.
were clearly science heroes,
Mhm.
right? They were a then modern take on like pulp scientific heroes, which we
Mhm.
now look back at like steampunk aesthetic. But
Mhm.
that was their goal. They were definitely the science fiction angle.
Yes.
Hence, their first things are like fighting monsters from underground, fighting all these
Woman.
threats from space,
Mhm.
time travel, alternate realities,
Yes.
alternate dimensions. That was always like the tone of their stories. And then they just had to always come back to the fact that they're a family, and it had
Mhm.
a very weird dynamic because Reed eventually marries Sue. Sue's brother is Johnny, and Ben is Mr. Fantastic's best friend in school, and then
Mhm.
later professionally. Thus, is like the adoptive uncle, and they were just this forever family unit, so they could be dealing with big cosmic threats. But then Johnny played another prank on the thing, and then it got out of hand.
Mhm.
These did. So that was always the tone of their story.
Now, every good hero um, is better defined by the villains they go against.
Mm-hmm.
And Fantastic Four is no different when it comes to having such a wide range of villains. But the first villain we must always talk about when it concerns um, this first family would always have to be Doctor Doom,
Yes.
forever terribly interpreted in other forms of media.
Yeah, he wasn't great
I,
outside
I,
of.
I
Even
don't
the cartoons
I
did him
don't
better.
get why they always do him wrong. But Doctor Doom is the iconic villain when it comes to Fantastic Four stories. Even more iconic than Galactus, who we all know in the most terrifying way as this planet-eating menace,
Mm-mm.
it has to still be Doctor Doom.
Yeah, because Galactus is just a force of nature. Being angry at or afraid of Galactus is like getting mad at storms or tsunamis. They're just things that happen. They are, in that sense, almost inevitable.
Mhm.
But Doctor Doom is the problem with Doctor Doom is that he is as brilliant or perhaps more brilliant than Reed Richards,
Mhm.
and he thinks he's right. He
And
absolutely thinks that he's right, and that the only way to save the world is that he rules it.
that's the main thing that makes Doctor Doom such an interesting villain. They had to come up with a villain who was big enough to be against a group.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
one thing to, it's one thing to have a villain and the villain has their own team
Yeah.
to fight the team. But here,
And villain teams weren't a thing
they
yet.
really needed a villain who was big enough in terms of personality, in terms of capacity, in terms of influence to challenge. You got a team of super smart, super powerful beings, and then you'll set them against one enemy. So, of course, they had to make sure he was smarter, if not beyond the smarts of the entire group. But then he didn't limit himself to just science.
That's why I love Doctor
He
Doom.
had to dive also into magic.
Yes.
And then that wasn't enough. Let's give him an entire nation to be, to have him, to back him up.
He literally has diplomatic immunity
Hmm.
because he is the leader of a sovereign nation.
And with all that, you know, you just have the makings of the best villain ever. Because he's not bound by nations. He has his own laws. He has his own country,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's not bound by the rules of science. He'll break them when he wants to, and then when science fails him, magic.
But because of the nature of Doctor Doom and the fact that he hates Richards because of essentially a grudge he just won't let go of,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes the balancing
Mm-hmm.
element. His fatal flaw is his hubris,
Yeah.
his inability to recognize Reed Richards as a potential peer, and to always think that Richards is doing something against him.
Mm-hmm.
And like jumping ahead very briefly, they have there's been another attempt to make a Doctor Who comic, but interestingly, it's an ongoing comic book
Mhm.
in parallel to the current
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic Four one, and it's super about his worldview. And there's literally a point where he could save the world, but then because Reed makes one remark and he takes it the wrong way, thinking that Reed is sabotaging him, it all falls apart.
Mhm.
And it's all, but ultimately, it's all his fault.
And
But
as
you won't see that.
and as larger than life as that might sound, there really are people like that. There are people who just refuse to see things a different way, no matter how brilliant they are.
Yes.
And that becomes the bigger mess that then affects everyone else.
And different writers have like had fun with Doctor Doom in
Mhm.
terms of how to depict him because of the fact that he's a leader of a sovereign nation. Um, and then there was a very cheeky Spider-Man comic that literally had him speaking and airport security remarking, "How do you do that? What you're talking in like all capital letters, or like you're talking in bold, and like this is how Doom always talks." And like, what? How? It was a trippy like fourth wall breaking
Mhm.
moment, but it just reflects that there is something about him.
And as caricature as that might sound, in the sense of, okay, so he's that type of a villain, it still works because they brought in the fact that he uses Doombots.
Mm,
The Doctor Doom you saw, who might have been so
campy.
campy, so crazy, so humiliating, so annoying, might have been just one of his robots, because he always has robot duplicates out there. And yes, they can be as human as possible, because he would use a fusion of magic and science to create these Doombots that look alive. And it still wasn't him.
Yeah, it's like he routinely runs his country using, robot copies of
Hmm.
himself, and then they're all over the place. And that's another story point that many writers have had fun with, including some Doombots becoming their own characters,
Yes.
but not Doctor Doom. Like it's bananas. Other villains that stand out because okay, to be fair, even the Inhumans in the beginning were treated
Yes.
almost like a villain.
Yes.
And it set this precedent of pitting the Fantastic Four against big cosmic threats, which,
Mhm.
which we can cover in detail. But they also had some really weird early villains that kept coming up. My favorite being the Red Ghost
Mhm.
and his super apes.
Yes. Because we had to, of course, still represent the Cold War happening in the
Yes.
comics. To
So
some
we give
extent.
him a Russian enemy.
The Red Ghost was, if I remember, he even had the fur collar.
Oh
in his
yes, he was
uniform.
literally in
He
this
was
big red outfit with a muffy fur collar, and he had these apes with different
Mhm.
abilities.
the orangutan, the gorilla, and
The
there was one more. The
baboon.
baboon.
Ugh, ugh, so evil. And I then their powers were like shape shifting and things like that. Because
Telekinesis, shapeshifting, and one more. I can't remember the last one.
it's so weird. It's
Um,
so weird.
Among the other villains, you had the Puppet Master, who
Oh,
was
he's a
connected
nice
to
recurring
Alicia
one.
Masters.
He's the dad.
And he basically would create these things with clay. And guess
Psychic
what?
clay.
Parang kulam, parang voodoo. He would then use that to take control of people or to make them do things.
I think more than anything is that he is such a great sculptor
Mhm.
because his I know it's comics, but then of course they always show that his sculpts were like super accurate and
Mhm.
he could create models in scale, which is bananas.
You had the Supreme Intelligence, which I always felt like, given it was the Fantastic Four, they always had to come up with a new villain and is smarter than you, a new villain, again, smarter than you, and so on and so forth.
Mitch is asking, is Red Ghost like Sinister sa X-Men? Oh no, he's a Russian spy. Okay.
So the Supreme Intelligence is connected to the race known as the Kree.
Yes.
In the cinematic Marvel universe, we've seen a glimpse of the Supreme Intelligence as this um, collective intelligence of their people.
Who looks like Annette Bening.
In the comic universe, however, they have had very strange interpretations on what the Supreme Intelligence is.
But the most common depiction is essentially a giant green potato with many eyes and
Mhm.
tentacle hair.
And in one version of the comics, the reveal was it's still Reed. Because Reed Richards says kinda all combined together to become what is known as the Supreme Intelligence.
And it's kind of gross that even like there is like also like a supremor who is bound to become the,
The
next
next Supreme
intelligence.
Yeah.
It's like it's a weird thing. Great, thanks Kree. Okay, but yes, and if your Kree sounds familiar, yes, the same race as Captain Marvel.
So you can't talk about the Kree without talking about the other side of the pond,
The
which is the Skrulls.
Moo.
Now the Skrulls have been one of the big time enemies of the Fantastic Four, and almost always when they're involved, the rest of the Marvel universe gets pulled into the fight. More notably among the Skrulls, because Skrulls have shape changing powers, and that always makes you wonder who you can trust, was they had a Super Skrull among them. And
Okay.
what made the Super Skrull super?
He could mimic the powers of the Fantastic Four, which is always depicted like he had a thing arm. He had a
He could mimic the powers all at once.
yes, that's
because
true.
Skrulls can mimic one power,
Yeah.
or at least one person.
Well, in the beginning, it was just copying appearances.
Yeah.
And they didn't have powers.
and it was the Super Skrull who could mimic the powers.
Yes. This is like way early on, and
Mhm.
it's so funny that for the are the Jay's asking, are the Skrulls related to the Kree only in the same way that the Capulets are related to the Montagues? They were just sworn enemies of one another. They are completely different alien races,
Mhm.
but they hate each other.
Mhm.
They didn't have a. I don't think it's one of those. The war has been going on so long they don't remember why.
And if you look at the Marvel Cosmic story, I was about to say the Marvel Cosmic Universe. That sounded wrong. The Marvel Cosmic line. Um, there are distinct alien races that
Yes.
that have shifted as the line progressed. Like for a point in time, it was the Kree, the Skrulls, the Chameleons, which was the horse race,
I don't remember
the
them.
Dire Wraiths,
Okay,
which were the
because-
enemies of Rom,
Yes, but
Rom the Space
okay,
Knight.
but he's not Rom anymore. They're just Space Knights, one word from
Exact-
Galador
Yeah.
without Rom.
Because
Okay.
Ram was a different brand.
Because they lost the license.
But yeah, you had the chameleons, which was the horse people, which was prominent in Power Pack.
Oh, because was it Cubic? No, not Cubic. But there's I remember that.
Yeah,
that
the
stupid,
horse-like people with powers.
the horse kid.
You have the Direates, the chameleons.
Was it the Rigelians who look like with the big heads? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
And then, of course, on the X-Men side, the Shi'ar.
Yes, and then the Shi'ar. And then later on, it changes a bit. But it's always Kree, Skrulls are the Todo fighters. And then you have the Inhumans coming in because they're supposedly related to some degree.
They're created by the Kree
Yes.
as a weird thing on Earth, which is different from the Eternals, who were created by the Celestials and left on Earth also. I don't know why everybody likes seeding Earth with stuff. So,
Which is a story arc in one of the
Yes,
things,
it's true.
right? Why always Earth? And the answer to that supposedly was the dreaming
It's all
celestial.
all right. So,
But the other answer was Molecule Man.
yeah, which in itself is he's all connected. All right.
We're getting ahead of
I'm
ourselves.
sorry. Yeah. So,
Let's
but
go
before,
back.
but
So
going back to
Skrulls
the
and Kree.
races, yeah. So in the beginning, it's so funny that the Skrulls were very campy villains.
Mm-mm.
Like they did not achieve much. So it wasn't decades later that Secret Invasion suddenly gave us like, oh
Mhm.
crap, this is why the Skrulls are scary kind of story.
Because the Skrulls were never portrayed as organized.
Yes,
They were
that's true.
always just small.
They were a war
small-
faction, but with lots of internal
Yeah,
conflict.
And it was always like small number of agents, a
Yeah.
small group, a small cadre, or it's Super Skrull again and his little minions.
I mean, the very first like major Skrulls that the Fantastic Four defeated, somehow Reed convinced them to be cows.
yeah,
So they were imprisoned as cows for the rest of their life.
and then even that was retconned later on in the story. That parang they chose to be cows, but they were like vigilantism for a while before that.
no, but it was worse because some people
Was it the
ate.
Skull Kill
No, because this is the Skrull kill crew
Crew?
may have someone in their line may have eaten the cows.
Something like that.
And then because they ate the beef from the Skrull crow and they gained
So Skull Crow.
Skrull abilities. It's like, yeah.
And if you think that's confusing, wait till we have an episode where we tackle DC and just the Hawkman, Hawkgirl.
I'm not.
Yung
I don't
palang
think we
magulo
can
na rin.
handle the infinite reincarnations of Hawkman.
And the nth metal,
Ah.
which is the main reason the metal story arc of DC has happened.
I don't want
Anyway,
to. I don't want to.
let's
touch
go
that.
back to Marvel.
Do I say Brian or do I say Claytor? But of course, yeah. The Human show is very sad.
Yes, the Inhuman show was okay. If you're gonna do Inhumans, the first and only thing you have to get right is the hair. You cannot do Medusa sad.
With rebonded
And
hair,
I'm
and
sorry.
then shave her early in the series.
Yeah, I mean,
So sad. So sad.
and I don't know why they keep doing that. Why they get something, and the first thing they do is nerf the thing that makes it interesting because they think it's edgy to have stories wherein that's the situation.
Mm-mm.
Diba? Because even with some of the movies, they did that. Na parang, okay, let's get these people. They have powers in the book we adapted, but here they're forced to hide it. Diba?
I did like the guy they cast as Black Bolt though. He looked
He had the gravitas.
yeah, he had that Black Boltness.
but he was a
But
sad
they made him
Black
do
Bolt.
stupid things. Yeah. They made him do very stupid things. Anyway. Okay.
And then you have the guy who's like the best fighter in the world, and he gets knocked out by a piece of wood.
All right, but we're talking about the Fantastic Four.
Okay, so we've talked about the aliens.
Wait,
And
yeah.
we can't end the alien
There are many
threats, without because Shi'ar is still more X-Men.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So Kree and Skrulls are very, very.
Oops. Urgent
Fantastic
question.
Four.
Jay's asking, as someone who has little to no exposure to the Inhuman, should he watch the series? No.
I'd say yes.
No.
No. I'd say yes, so you can see how, even big budget shows, and by big budget I mean bigger budget than local shows, can end up with crap.
It's a case study.
Yeah,
sure.
it's a good case study of how things can really go bad, and it's not just always M. Night Shyamalan's fault.
Okay, all right. I don't know about that, but okay. So who are you gonna talk about for aliens? You're saying you're talking about the aliens. We have the Kree, the Skrull, and who do you want to highlight?
Um,
Because I know I want to highlight someone on the
go,
list.
go, go.
Because if we're gonna talk about iconic aliens
Mhm.
in Fantastic Four history, we're
Mhm.
gonna have to talk about Impossible Man.
Yes.
You're gonna talk about Impossible Man. Oh my god.
For those who need to understand who Impossible Man is, the best, fastest way to do so is to use other lines. For example, if you know Star Trek, Q. If you know
He's
DC,
not that powerful,
if you
but
know
good.
DC,
Mitsuplick. He's Mr. Mitsuplick.
and then if you don't know either, the mask.
Yeah. He was his main ability was shapeshifting.
Always with a popping sound.
Yes, with the literal pop sound effect. He actually was a prominent villain featured in one of the early cartoon series. They
Mhm.
super wanted to highlight that, but he's just so weird.
So the Impossible Man is a Papupian
Papupian from the
for the
planet
planet
Pop
Pop
Up.
Up and has shape changing abilities. The character was always used for comedy effect. Was a lonely, attention seeking alien who annoys everyone around him. Sounds familiar yet? But in many ways, what made him the perfect foil for the Fantastic Four was absurdity.
Yeah,
Whereas the Fantastic Four would try to be logical, sensible, and all that, he was always
and half the time, his villain story is that he's trying to help,
mhm,
but in a way that only seems to benefit him,
and always messes things up.
and always messes things up. He was a very comedic character,
And
but it's
he
like,
was
yeah.
he was always recognizable for the green and purple presence on his body because he was a green person in a purple outfit.
And he was like
So-
skinny tall.
So anything he turned into would still be green and purple.
So
Hence
stupid.
that one issue, well, not one issue, one story where he became the Hulk. But then he reversed it by mistake, so he was a purple Hulk in green pants.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes.
And then if I remember, there was an issue where he, pop and super strain, and then ta-da, I changed color. And I think he became orange for like a brief moment.
Yeah,
And he was
yeah.
super proud.
I don't know. It's like I think if any of you watched like the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and then
Mhm.
like it was he's very memorable. Okay. All right.
Basically a Deus Ex Machina type of character.
Okay, so I think we can touch on though. I guess
Like, we have to dive now to the science villains.
okay.
So, Fantastic Four, being the science heroes, had their collection of villains who were very science oriented as well.
Okay.
So the wizard, the trapster, um, the trapster, Dragon Man. Um, these were all very science based villains, and um, in as much as many of them were there, it would not be until a villain that used both science and super science that they would find their bigger enemy, and that would be Annihilus. Because Annihilus would then kick in with all these weird devices and his swarms.
But the main thing was that Annihilus was from the negative zone,
Yes.
which was like a popular in order to depict, crossing dimensions.
Mhm.
Reed Richards discovers the negative zone and all the crap that comes from the negative zone because that gives you Blastar
Yes.
and Annihilus and
And-
all these other evil entities
And
from over
it even
there.
pushes to the point that he tries to use the negative zone as a prison.
Oh, that was Secret War. Civil
Civil
War. Ooh, messy. Oh, and then on a side note, just throwing out, there's Diablo that people tend to disregard because he's dressed very stupidly.
Wasn't Diablo though more an Avengers villain?
No, he wasn't. No, he was still a prominent
He had the
Fantastic Four
transmutation
because
powers.
he was alchemy.
Alchemy.
So he
alchemy.
was still science,
Yeah.
but it was a borderline magic science.
You're right.
So it's funny. He is still in the range of a science hero enemy for the Fantastic Four.
So of course, mentions of comets.
So Owatu and the Watchers, yes, that came up prominently, and then it brings up the Hickman run on Fantastic Four. We'll talk about some of the major runs in a bit, just to kind of enjoy that exploration. Um, uh, Touching on the big stuff, so we kind of glossed over the cosmic stuff, but I mean because we wanted to focus on Doctor Doom, but we gotta talk about his weird relationship with Galactus.
Okay.
Okay, the Galactus arc was really like, um, how do you deal with essentially, yeah, it's like the cosmic equivalent
Mhm.
of a storm. He's just going to come through and destroy Earth,
Mhm.
and yet they found a way around it.
And it was no, it was really because it's one thing to have you have a villain, and then it's another thing to have you're fighting an army, and then another thing is you're fighting a fleet. But then here you're fighting a single individual, as far as most depictions are concerned. Um, and it's almost Lovecraftian in the sense that he doesn't
Mm.
really care. He just wants to eat,
Yeah,
and you're
he's just hungry.
just the next planet on the menu. It only really allowed us to be able to view it in a more human way when the heralds get involved. Because
Starting with the Silver
because
Surfer.
the heralds then become people you talk to on a more personal level, and then you hear about the story and this and that and that. But Galactus as Galactus is just I'll show up and I'll eat. Um, of course, with a threat that big, the solutions in the many instances the Fantastic Four would have to deal with him would always also be larger than life solutions. And one of the biggest solutions they've used multiple times is what they call the ultimate nullifier.
Which only came into their hands because the Watcher broke his vow and interfered,
Mhm.
which was like, ooh, Watcher interference. He
Mhm.
keeps saying he won't, but then he does a few times. Owatu, anyway.
Mhm.
But the ultimate nullifier is a fascinating concept because number one, it's a human-sized device,
Yes.
which is always its default home is Galactus's ship.
Yes.
He carries the very weapon that can defeat him.
Mhm.
But the problem with the ultimate nullifier is that it is so powerful that unless you have absolute focus of will and you clear your mind and only imagine your target,
Mhm.
um, it will also destroy you.
Yes.
So whenever the ultimate nullifier brings up is brought up, then it's always it's a suicide mission.
Mhm.
And they didn't have to use it with Galactus. Just the threat of using it.
Would have him think twice.
Yeah, it was an analogy for nuclear power in a
Mhm.
way. You know, it was just like this thing.
Galactus was in originally the original origins was that he was a space explorer named Galan who gained cosmic abilities when he passed by a star. Later depictions further developed that story to him being the last survivor
Of
of a
another
previous
universe.
universe,
Yeah.
and that's why he's the last of his race moving around. So he's kind of like Superman in that way too.
He just eats planets.
But then even that no longer seems to stand because if you look at the current Marvel universe, wherein a lot of the Marvel heroes had to flee the destruction of the multiverses and escape to this new universe, then they're all kind of like Galactus because it's all boiling back down to
But you know, and
Multiman.
then there was like even he came out of this cosmic egg
Mhm.
thing and whatnot. The Ultimates, not to be confused with the Avengers version, but the Ultimates as an independent, super smart superhero team actually cured Galactus for a time, and then we had this yellow orange
Mhm.
Galactus running around.
But then there was also the Ultimate Fantastic Four version of Galactus, which was Ultimate Hunger,
Mm.
which had it as a swarm, just like the movie, which had it as smoke.
Yeah, so Mitch had the question of who are the villains in the different Fantastic Four movies per release. She can only remember Doom. So the first Fantastic, so I won't say the first. The first Fantastic Four movie with Chris Evans, they initially faced a very sad Doctor Doom, whose like
Mhm.
main thing was that he had metal skin. I did never quite understood what they wanted Doctor Doom to be
Yeah,
there.
so the very first film that was in 1994 that
Pum,
had
pum.
Alex Hyde White as Reed Richards, Rebecca Stab
Stab.
as Sue Richards, Jay Underwood as Johnny Storm, and Michael Bailey Smith as Ben Grimm. Um, they did have Victor Von Doom as the villain, and yeah, the next one.
That movie didn't exactly get a wide release, you know.
The next movie, which was 2005, was the Tim Story Fantastic Four. Um, so that's the one that had a sequel.
Yes.
And
The first one, they fought Doom.
yeah, the first one they fought Doom. The second one was the Rise of the Silver Surfer. So obviously, it was a Galactus story.
And yet it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because, okay, in the early 2000s, the approach to a lot of these Marvel movies are like, hey, the Ultimates line was very popular. And for those unfamiliar, the Ultimates line was a reimagining of the
edgier.
it was a lot
more
edgier.
real.
Yeah. And so things like even the to some degree the X-Men titles, even the Avengers later
Mhm.
on, like borrowed more elements from the Ultimates than anything else.
It definitely wasn't bad, but for people who are hungry for the movies, it seemed like the wrong way to go.
Yeah. So and thus we got the Galactus that was a swarm, which was part of a larger
It wasn't
trend.
even a swarm; it was just clouds.
It was a cloud. A large problem of all these villains that were to show that they were so big and nebulous or so wide spanning in their powers
Hmm.
will turn them into non-solid things. I mean, even with Green Lantern, you're gonna say it.
Yes.
It was Sinestro, no, it was Sinestro, but the fear entity thing, which was another
Yes.
smoke tentacle monster.
Parallax.
Parallax. Okay, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what's happening. So that's and then
Just
there
when
was
you thought
yeah, I
that
thought
they
we were
couldn't
safe.
do it worse. You have John Trank who did an amazing movie called Chronicle, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
It was that what's the word, shaky cam
superhero movie.
story. Um,
Although like that was we're not like saying that was a perfect movie by any means, but it was a good
it
concept.
was very well executed. It did make you imagine. It did
Yeah.
make you think, superheroes and stuff like that. So when he was supposed to do Fantastic Four, there was a brief moment of, ooh, this might be interesting.
But then they decided to reboot, and then
Not only did they
yes.
reboot, but they sort of try to tell a very different story.
Yes.
And we end up with what I think I have the right to say is the saddest Doctor Doom we've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was also they tried to be more based on the Ultimates version of
Mhm.
the comic, but it didn't work out well. Yeah. So yeah, and their villain was also Doctor Doomish, but maybe just themselves. No, I'm kidding. So there's a yeah, then that's all we know now for like the main villain. So um it just hurts me that every time Doctor Doom is done terribly.
Just Clea also mentioned the Galactus complex relationship with Franklin Richards.
I think
Um,
every cosmic entity had a complex relationship with him.
Before we get to Franklin,
Okay.
let's finalize first his relationship with the dad,
Mm.
because Reed has this major the trial of Reed Richards story,
Mm.
wherein the alien races put him on trial for the whole Galactus saga, and it it was a very interesting take in the story, because it's one thing to say, "Yay, we stopped this guy who will eat everything,"
Yeah.
and then you have all these other races affected by that fallout.
Yeah, because no, and then instead he came to us and ate our planet.
And it does make you think about it, like if you are facing such a great force, and what they're doing is something they can't stop. It's hunger. So would setting them off to attack someone else really be the heroic action?
Mm-hmm.
So with all that, with all larger than life villains, with a villain who does magic and
Science.
science, you have alien armadas and stuff. We have all this thrown at the first family. What would be the next biggest threat you could think of to throw them? Of course, it has to be kids, and not just any kind of kid. A kid who is the most powerful being in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how they came up with this idea and
Mhm.
like decide that the product of an invisible woman and an elastic man would be a kid who can alter reality, and then who may or may not be a mutant depending on which version you read. Uh, and his power set, his ability to alter reality, which is basically change the very fundamentals of the
Mhm.
world, of the universe, was always a crazy power set. And yeah, and then so half the time it was an effort by the writers to like depict him as powerful but nerf it
Mhm.
because he's a kid.
And then there was that added complication of trying to define him, but no one really has done so. So it led to a lot of interesting story arcs. So, for example, in one of the story arcs, in one of the recent story arcs, with the X-Men, well, with the mutant line now having all this, we have our own island and our own
Island
society,
Nation.
and
Yeah.
we will take care of our people. They brought in the story Franklin Richards might be a mutant, and therefore we will take him from you.
Mm-hmm.
In other stories, we had stories wherein Franklin Richards was the target because, as far as these aliens are concerned, they can see how he will bring doom in the future
Yes.
and this and that. And the kid was like, "What? But I don't know anything like that." But one of my favorite Franklin incarnations was the Future Foundation stories
Why do you want to highlight Future Foundation in particular?
because it had you seeing a glimpse of how the kids would handle things differently.
Mm.
And yet at the same time, smarts isn't everything. Experience is still helpful. So that was a good arc. In the Future Foundation, you had Franklin Richards with a host of other super smart
Well,
characters.
not all smart, but mostly smart
Yeah.
of different race because they had the smartest mole people we've ever seen.
Mm. Including one that was just ahead,
Yes, and a clone of the wizard,
who
but who was still growing up.
who was being called, I think, Bentley.
Betty, because that's his real name.
Yeah, but he I'm the wizard. You had who was the one from Wakanda? Um, it Okoye, I think, and
No, no,
then
no. I forgot, yeah, but they had someone. But no, Hoy is the Dora
Yeah.
Milaje.
and then you had Dragon Man, who was repurposed to be smarter.
Because Dragon Man is an android. It's a robot. It's
You
a
have-
robot dragon.
You have Artie and Leech, who were there, and then you had Alex Powers.
Yes, of Power Pack fame.
Yes.
And it was basically they're trying to do a school type approach.
But the last person we haven't mentioned in that group that we have to is Valeria Richards.
Mm.
So Valeria Richards felt at first redundant for me.
Because like they already have a super awesome kid. Why is there
Yes.
another kid?
But then the twist with Valeria Richards is her roots.
Yes, that she is still more related to Doctor Doom somehow,
Mm-hmm.
and thus she is just so she has no super abilities except for the fact that she's a super genius
Mhm.
as a child, and her ability to create things is fantastic. And then and then over the course of the different comic book iterations, she manages to maintain a relationship with Doctor Doom
Mm-hmm.
to the point that they will call each other for help, which is strange. Okay.
Now, the Future Foundation story arc, to explain it at the risk of spoiling somewhat some of the stories, and I will admit there's some of the really good stories.
It's the Hickman
Um,
run.
Yeah. It all starts with a mysterious stranger who starts teaching Franklin how to use his powers.
Yes.
And eventually the identity of that stranger is revealed, but this becomes part of a longer interconnected arc that involves Reed Richards trying to solve everything.
Mm, mm.
Um, Valeria reconnecting with Doom, and um, yeah. Multiple Infinity Gauntlets.
So,
And I think that's enough to explain why.
Well,
It's,
but yeah.
we don't want to spoil it.
but ultimately, the Future Foundation became a parallel series to the Fantastic Four main book, which focused on the kids,
Yes,
and then their continued
misadventures,
adventures, education, whatnot. Because they weren't just together, but they were also like depicting them learning. And then That's why Spider-Man has like a Future Foundation costume, because there was a time that he was like helping take care of them also.
Because there was that point wherein the team had to leave,
yes,
so they got replacements
yes,
to watch over.
because of course they're gonna get replacements.
Yes, and hence the white and black outfit.
And then Ant-Man.
Valeria was super smart, smarter. Officially, she might be the smartest one ever now than anyone. But then that's debatable because there is Moon Girl and Rebel Dinosaur.
I hate it because Moon Girl is defined as she's the smartest girl ever. Also.
Yeah, but she already did beat Reed. So
and the weird whatever fractal human intelligence test that Pym or was it Banner
they
designed.
keep trying to do more and more and more.
So yeah, so Valeria is biologically related to Doctor Doom through Invisible Woman somehow. I mean, I'm not gonna get into the details of it, and then it's just accepted
Okay.
that so she gets to she when she talks to Doctor Doom, it's really grandfather.
Mhm. Now there are story arcs that are really good, and the Future Foundation storyline, admittedly, I want you to read it, so I don't want to give.
Yeah,
too
that's why
much
we're like
details.
just squirreling around.
But I do want to talk about some of the stories that I did enjoy.
Okay,
But to get there, let's wrap up our villains list.
who else do you want to touch
So we
on?
mentioned Annihilus.
Oh yeah, and our negative zone friends.
And Annihilus, I guess, has I guess we can say he has the recognition of being one of the few enemies who did kill a member of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, and to be fair, again, Annihilus felt very monster of the week in the early years, like many villains, because he was just that guy in the negative zone. So the ultimate solution is push him back into the negative zone. But it wasn't until the early 2000 arc Annihilation that they super amped up the negative zone threat by making him an invading army
Yes.
of his hordes of minions, and this literally leads to the destruction and weird things like the Skrull homeworld gets destroyed, which leads to secret invasion. I mean, all these things, and then and this is actually what forms the modern incarnation of the Guardians of the Galaxy, because they those interrelated events with Annihilation Conquest. But yeah, so suddenly the Annihilus became super more dangerous, but his depiction is still he's borderline crazy.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that he has this his cosmic rod, which is literally this glowing cylinder that vaguely gives him the ability to do things. It's like it sometimes blasts things, it sometimes
It's a MacGuffin.
create things, it sometimes it's what makes him lead his army. I don't know. So all these things.
And then Kang.
Yeah, we gotta save the best for last. So Kang, although
Not the best, but one of I guess of all the
we wanted to talk about Psycho Man.
of all the Fantastic Four villains, I put Kang close, but not. Doctor Doom still higher, but Kang's pretty up there.
So interestingly, because Tang? Many think of Kang as an Avengers villain, which is true. He actually has more confrontations with the Avengers.
Yeah.
But by throwing
Nick, we summoned Nick.
Wow. Okay. But then by throwing out the dangling thought that he may or may not be somehow descended from either Doctor Doom or the Richards line, then he became very connected to the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
And thus there were a number of incarnations of Kang who would either come to blows with or work together with Doctor Doom, and the two of them always having this understanding of you. So the thing.
So, given those, what are the Fantastic Four stories you remember or really enjoy?
Okay.
Other than Future Foundation.
Stupidly, what I'm always going to remember, which is not really great because I didn't even get to fully read it, but because like it's because in the time that we were only buying individual issues with like allowance and not, I wasn't an adult, so I don't have the whole story. But in the 90s, there was that point where Sue becomes super punk
Yes.
and I don't know why the interpretation of her becoming more aggressive is that she's in a more revealing outfit than ever.
Yes.
Um,
The black and red Malice outfit.
and then they're being visited by a guy in super giant armor who is Nathaniel Richards, who
Mhm.
claims to be the grandfather but has gone to the future,
Mhm.
and then he is to kidnap Franklin Richards, which I think in hindsight is so Hope in the X-Men type
Mhm.
thing. But kidnap Franklin Richards, um, and then he comes back as an older Franklin Richards, and they're not sure if they really believe it. It was this whole messed up.
Mhm.
It was all the good elements of Fantastic Four: family drama, time travel,
Mhm.
future science, all these things. It was just super like wapam wapam.
So, Mark is sharing information on Kang. Thank you so much for also fielding those questions. Um, my favorite Fantastic Four stories fall a lot under the.
The Hickman run.
So the Hickman run is there because it's science. The way he does science stories, science hero stories are great. But then in the older ones, um, so there was this long run by Simonson, if I remember correctly the name,
Mm-hmm.
um, which had a lot of super high level. We're on this time traveling sled vehicle thing,
Okay.
and they were trying to do a lot of things. A lot of it had time bubbles, which Sue would have to reinforce, and then um,
Which Thor?
um, God of Thunder, Thor would be inside, throwing the hammer at the shield to propel it, and then back and forward over and over again. So Sue
Okay.
having to take that
Oh, I don't
to
remember this
propel
one.
them forward because time was chasing after them and the sled was being destroyed. So that's one. But then there was the one I love the most. We're in. Um, so the thing once again, Ben Grimm once again feels like crap, so he goes to Doom and becomes human. And the
Recurring theme.
the team, of course, suspect something's up and that it's a trap. So they go to confront Doom, and one by one, they're all trapped.
Of course, because Doom devotes an unusual amount of time creating Fantastic Four specific
Yes.
prisons.
And then it culminates with this issue where Reed breaks free from his trap, and Doom's like, "How did you break free?" And Reed refuses to answer. And when they fight, they use these time machines.
Mm-hmm.
So you read through the issue, they're jumping from scene to scene fighting. But then, if you read the comic again, following the jumps, you'll see it was Reed who rescues himself from the trap. Because at
Mm.
one point, Doom's about to blast him, he dodges, it destroys the wall where Reed was trapped. And that's enough for Reed to escape. So he facilitated his own escape by jumping in the time
Because why
stream.
not? Paradox.
And oh my gosh, it's so well done
This sounds
because
familiar when you say it.
it
I
is
think I've
such a
read this one.
beautiful comic.
I think I've read this one. Okay. Okay. So yeah, and then like I have this long I mean I have a bunch of them on my Comixology account,
Hmm.
and I still haven't taken the time to like really read through them because there are a lot of notable people who worked on the Fantastic Four over the
So
years.
Mark shares that he loves how the Hickman run out Grant Morrison's X-Men ideas. Clay, of course, shares Grant Morrison in New X-Men is steroids. It's true. Um, the Grant Morrison run in X-Men is rivaled in awesomeness alone by the Whedon run.
Mm.
Only because the Whedon run also hit very nice notes, but well, my heart goes to Shadowcat. I love how he portrayed Shadowcat. Um, but then, yes, the Hickman run was incredible. I only do feel that the Hickman run fell weak near the end,
Mm.
similar to the Morrison run. The
Yeah.
last the last story arc of the Morrison run and you know it's the last arc because he changed artist to Mark Silvestri at that point, and was no longer having Quietly doing the art. I wasn't too keen on that story arc. Just like in the Hickman run, the last few stories felt like they tried to summarize na lang things because they
Mm.
couldn't really tell it anymore. So bigla na lang we jumped forward super, and then Valeria's just explaining this and that. So that was kind of frustrating for me.
Yeah. So like I know like I was just double checking. Like, see, I have like the Mark Wade run. I
Mhm.
have the John Byrne run, and like I haven't read them. I haven't read them. So I will get around, and then I want to understand who is responsible for what. Because admittedly, when I was growing up, I was not great at remembering or paying attention to who wrote what.
Hmm.
I mean, oh my god, even Mike Krasinski wrote on the Fantastic Four. So I don't know why though. I never quite got into it. I mean, to be fair, it was just one key constraint was I was a kid and I only had school money.
Hmm.
So if I was gonna spend money on anything, it was gonna be Spider Man. Growing up, and it
Hmm.
was always Spider Man. So I didn't have room in my head for other sciencey related heroes, and I was already content with just dealing with Spider Man
Hmm.
as being my smart hero. I didn't need Reed Richards, and then outsider looking in at the time, their power set is really weird. Like I don't get how this power set was supposed to work.
True.
Cause I mean it was stretching. It was I have rock skin,
Hmm.
which is like okay, but he wasn't invulnerable,
Yeah.
and there have been very gross depictions of him like getting hurt.
Hmm.
Damn you, Wolverine! And then oh my god, which is also in the '90s and led to the thing with the mask.
The Phantom of the Opera thing.
Yeah, because he was ugly na nga, and then he had a Wolverine slash across his face, and it bothered him.
So the comments area is talking all about the X-Men. We should have an X-Men episode. And yes,
But
the
we all,
Morrison
we have to
run,
catch up on the X-Men and finish X of Sword.
the
before we can talk
Morrison
about it.
run of Emma is groundbreaking.
Yeah.
The way they reinterpreted Emma was such
Which
a breath of fresh
which
air.
clearly changed her forever, and then
Yes.
we're now stuck with this depiction. Okay. And sorry, and then it was like we weren't saying that Morrison did FF, but we're constantly comparing the Hickman run on FF with the
Yes.
Morrison run on X-Men. So
Yes.
that's the context of those statements. Okay.
So yeah, Mark does share. Technically, Hickman's Fantastic Four ended with Secret Wars. That's true.
Yeah. How everything ended with Secret Wars, and then we
Because-
all got these Last Days comics that were terrible.
And
they were all just quick wrap-ups.
and it did feel like they had to wrap up because the rights were with someone else.
Okay, and I think we should talk about this. So, but before we get into the movies and that complication, let's talk about other little incarnations of the Fantastic Four. Because we did highlight there were actually 4 animated TV series. So the first one comes out in the 60s and it was done by Hanna-Barbera, which is like kind of crazy when you think about it. And um, it still depicted the classic Fantastic Four. It only runs for one season of 20 episodes.
Mhm.
But over the course of that, they do get to cover everything from Diablo, the Mole Man, the Super Skrull, the Red Ghost, because we always have to have a Red Ghost story. You had an episode that, of course, makes reference to Yancey Street and all that, but it was ultimately very campy. Oh my god, I didn't realize they had a Ramatut episode. Interesting. Okay, then for some reason, there's another Hanna Barbera series, um, that brings in Herbie,
Mhm.
the robot, and Herbie replaces Johnny Storm, and we never get a reason why. It's just like let's forget the Human Torch, and now we have a robot there.
Given that was the late 70s, I wouldn't be surprised if it was fear that children would set themselves on fire if they see a hero that's made of fire.
There was no in-universe explanation, but looking at Wikipedia, they're saying because the television rights for the Human Torch were getting tied up by another show, but it never
Oh. It's
pushed
another
through.
rights issue.
It's always rights issues. So that was funny. What else did we make? What are the other 4? Spin-offs. Okay.
So there was the thing featured in as half of the Saturday morning cartoon, Fred and Barney Meet the Thing.
Oh,
That's
that's
in
super random.
1979. He had a radical makeover for the series. He was Benji Grimm, a teenage boy who possessed a pair of magic thing rings that could transform him into the thing. When they put them together and said, "Thing rings, do your thing."
I'm so proud of you for saying this out loud. Okay. Okay.
The third Fantastic Four was a broadcast part of the Marvel Action Hour umbrella. This ran for 26 episodes from September 24, 1994 till 1996. And then the fourth series was Fantastic Four World's Greatest Heroes, which appeared on Cartoon Network.
I never saw those ones. I don't remember. I think I may have seen snippets of the third one.
Mhm.
Taking a look. Yeah, I think I've seen snippets of the third one, but I don't remember the fourth. Wow. Okay. Okay. Mark was wondering if Spider-Man and Amazing Friends different entirely. Suppose actually the timelines it's a different tie-up, but that was funny.
And that had Firestar.
That created Firestar.
Yes, her
No,
her
it was
microwave.
Firestar and Iceman.
Mhm,
It was not Johnny Storm.
mhm.
He-
Because
Johnny Storm was not his
they were
amazing friend.
going against the Wonder Twins.
No,
Di ba,
But-
yun yung magkasunod na magkatapat na shows?
essentially, I don't know. It's like that's
And
a
then,
bit
of course,
a-
they were both beaten by Defenders of the Earth.
Wow, this is the episode that gets Toby to sing.
I'm not singing, I'm just chanting.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I shall bathroom break, but you continue.
Oh, we should talk about the movies. So, in the early days, in the early days of Marvel movies, they they weren't doing well financially, and so they farmed out all their movies and they sold the rights of their major properties, which is why things like Spider-Man and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four were done by different studios. And um, but when the MCU started, Marvel Studios started, and then they tried to like really take care of their remaining properties, they were left with weird gaps in the firmament because they couldn't tell stories related to mutants because the X-Men were over with Fox, and then the Fantastic Four also were not with them. And they couldn't tell anything related to Spider-Man related characters because Spider-Man was with Sony. So um there was a sort of cold war, an implied cold war between Marvel trying to support its new movie machine as the MCU was starting to form, and then um, and not directly antagonizing, but also not supporting all these other people, all these other movie projects.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, so given that, then we started to see weird things in terms of like how these characters were depicted, which is why I didn't like also Secret Wars, because Secret Wars, spoiler alert for those who may want to read the comic,
Mm-hmm.
essentially ends with ending the Fantastic Four as a comic book line.
Mm-hmm.
So because they don't have the rights, they're not part of the MCU. We're not going to make you more comics,
Yes.
and we're going to take them out of the story world entirely. It's the same reason why suddenly you had the Inhumans being made more prominent
Mm-hmm.
because they couldn't use mutants.
Yes.
And then they had the Inhumans literally fight the X-Men because why not?
Because the cloud of
Terrigen
Terrigen
mists.
mists was going around, because now it had a new property no one knew of.
Yeah. So there were all these like weird actions that were clearly like trying to affect or trying to take material away from the continuing movie projects on the other studios so that Marvel Studios could eventually just move forward. Because it's even things like our favorite deck building game, legendary Marvel deck building game. Was this had the Fantastic Four expansion,
Mm-hmm.
which very quickly went out of print
Mm-hmm.
and was not being reissued.
Although I heard they're now reprinting.
Yeah, now it's okay.
I
Now it's
wonder
okay to
why.
reprint it. But for many years, we could not get it. And so it was super like when Toby found a copy
It
at a
was
decent
super.
price.
Grab it before it goes
Yeah,
up.
yeah. We got it before it went crazy. But so there were all these like passive aggressive things against the non MCU properties.
So Brian asks, Brian mentions, I feel the only fairly comic accurate Fantastic Four character was Chris Evans as the Human Torch.
Mm.
I therefore ask, Human Torch or Captain America?
Mm.
Or should there be an episode
It's called What If.
where we see him playing both and they're like, huh? Just as there should be an episode where we see a bunch of them face together and they go, sure, Sherlock. And they all played Sherlock at some point. That sort of thing. X-Men comics only became amazing again with Hickman right around the time got the Mutants. Um, hmm. I think it's tricky. It's tricky to define because some say X-Men was always popular, but then people who were used to it a certain way feel it died out.
Mm-mm.
So it's a question also sometimes of perspective. Like I remember at one point I was trying to read up again and I was like, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand what I'm reading anymore. All these new characters and you know why are these people suddenly alive again? That sort of thing.
And then I feel like it was just the effort because the X-Men is still like one of Marvel's greatest comic book lines. And
Mhm.
then but then the movies weren't with them. So you felt like they were still trying to produce X-Men material, but then they tried different things. One was like they amped up the anti-mutant hate.
Mm-hmm.
So the world was literally also aggressive against them.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, as reconciliation, but also to further muddy things down, was that there was the integration effort.
Yeah.
Hence, Uncanny Avengers, where you had mutant members mixed in with like classic Avenger characters, and it was all this effort to like blur the lines between the X-Men and other teams.
But at the same time, Marvel just kept throwing major story arc after major story arc. It was almost as if they wanted to try to get back the success of certain storylines because it felt like it was jumping from one story arc to another
Yeah.
at some point. We're in um, we just had Fear itself, and then suddenly we're in Dark Reign, but then suddenly we're in Civil War, and then suddenly we're in Secret Wars. It felt that way. Unlike before, we're in, let's say, Inferno happened, and then after Inferno, it's pretty much quiet lines first before the next story arc.
And because before it wasn't always the big all title spanning events.
Mhm.
Like I mean, like we talk about there are things like Atlantis Attacks was this big storyline, which
Mhm.
only really took place in like a few books. And then it was but it didn't super affect everyone else.
So Nick shares 20-something Chris Evans wouldn't work as Steve Rogers, no more than his 30-something self wouldn't work.
That's
as John.
true. That's true.
That's true. That does make sense.
The actor literally aging, redefining what roles he could do.
Mm.
Okay.
And you gotta admit, the beard helped.
So same thing with like, X-Men got a bit more interesting with Hickman and and all that one. Then also with the rights of the Fantastic Four movies being back with uh our overlords, Disney, Marvel, whatever,
Mhm.
is that the Fantastic Four decide to come back after their multiverse spanning adventures. And the new comic line is interesting. I wouldn't say it's a home run, but there are a lot of great moments littered here all throughout.
I'm starting to realize my first encounter with Fantastic Four
Mm.
wasn't necessarily because of the crossover stories.
Oh, what do you remember now?
Because Franklin Richards was part of Power Pack.
Yeah, that's really your thing.
And I was
You,
really
Toby super
I
got
was
into Power
super
Pack.
into Power Pack. And I now come to think of it,
I did not realize
might
this.
have bought some Fantastic Four issues before because Franklin was there or a story had to combine to that. Because I know Power Pack did dip into weird points. And like at one point it had an Inferno crossover and they were suddenly fighting Sabretooth. And then in another one, um, they had their powers switched. And then there was a point in time that Franklin Richards was seen as a mutant.
Mm-mm.
He was called Tattletale because he had this dream power and he could see what was happening. It was later on it becomes reality changing and all that.
Oof. And then we get Onslaught. And Heroes Reborn. What the hell? The world is trapped in Franklin's ball.
Okay, so some other comments. Jay asks, of all the non-comic iterations, did you answer this already?
No.
If not, of all the non-comic iterations of the Fantastic Four, which one is your favorite? Um, so he mentions World Greatest Heroes is his favorite in terms of the animation. He saw the extent of the powers. I will admit the second movie, which is basically Chris Evans as the Human Torch.
Yeah.
While not a favorite, it still was a very nice moment of seeing the Fantastic Four. Um, they did try to use their powers. They did try to capture the personalities. Um, Very sad what they did with Doom.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the
but
main
I'm very
painful
happy
point.
they didn't CG the thing.
That it was mostly a costume
Yeah,
with some
I
enhancement.
appreciated that suit, and I
Mm-mm.
know for some it looked hokey, but for me, um, I think they just needed more Foley artists to make grinding noises whenever he moved. But I
You do
like
that in post.
yeah, but I liked seeing the thing as a costume.
Yeah, and make what fun of you will of Jessica Alba's Invisible Woman. She actually wasn't that terrible
But
because
she was in it, ba? I didn't
look at
notice.
that, look at that. Oh wow, because she's invisible. No, because if I think back to, if you think back to her earliest depiction in the '60s, um, sadly her level of personality was along those lines.
Hmm.
She was literally this weird backup character. The What If story that tackles them. The very first issue of What If is what if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four, and their conclusion was having a more like outward prominent hero like Spider-Man would
Hmm.
eventually make the Invisible Woman feel less useful on the team, and so she leaves and never marries Reed. It's like, oh my god! So that was really like character things.
Yes, Jessica Alba isn't the best actress in general.
So it was good that she was being made invisible.
So there's mention of course, Stucky Love Forever. I'll give you guys that. Okay, Mark mentions he liked the Cyclops anti-hero arc. See, we really have to have an X-Men episode. We will definitely have an X-Men episode to get all the X-Men stories out. But
That's gonna be
focusing,
really more your episode.
but focusing on Fantastic Four, I want to touch on the fact that there were video games about Fantastic Four, and I don't know if you all remember that. So there was one of the rare ones was the Quest Probe Fantastic Four adventure game. Um,
1985. Uh-oh.
what I remember before we get to the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, the Quest Probe games they were very much like Myst, wherein you had, let's say, this door, ganyan, and you can't break it, then you'll type, the thing punches the door, and then I won't do that, and stuff like that. So it was that sort of a game. I remember really playing it a lot, and
Oh,
I was
really?
very annoyed.
I had no exposure to this.
I was very annoyed because they just wouldn't do what I told them to. I wasn't parsing the commands well. Jay mentions Grabby the hate on Sue. We don't hate Sue. Jessica Alba, on the other hand. So,
Sue's quite awesome.
yeah. The group also appeared in the Fantastic Four video game in 1997. The team also appears in Spider-Man the animated series video game. And then we have Marvel Nemesis and Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Oh, I loved Ultimate Alliance. We super got into
So Ultimate Alliance was the game that basically said, "Oh, Diablo successful.
Yeah.
Let's do it with superheroes."
Yeah, let's do it on console so you can button mash.
And it was fun.
It was a lot of
It
fun.
was very fun.
And then I liked that there were team bonuses, so that
Mm.
then you would really want to be you have all
You'd
the
be
Fantastic
encouraged
Four.
to play again
Yeah.
and try team combinations. Um, and then beyond that, the other games are pinball machines and the like.
Oh, I had that. I have the Marvel Pinball one. It was run by the Pinball Pro one. Okay.
So going back to the comments, kind of excited for the fan casting of Emily Blunt as the Invisible Woman. John Krasinski and Emily Blunt would be the perfect Richard. I don't know, Nick, because for me, Reed's not No. I see Reed. I don't know because he stretches and stuff, so I see him always as lanky.
Yeah,
And whenever they depicted Reed as more muscular and the like,
and he has some very daddy incarnations.
I feel nawawala yung point na the main concept was he was a nerdy smart guy and he
Mm.
landed the hot babe.
Yes.
And when they start making him look more buff, I kind of feel they're losing that.
Mm. Mm.
It's sort of like when they started making Superman look maangas. And you're like, no.
Cleo. Oh, Reed isn't thick, more long.
Yeah, he's long. He's a grower. But he's not the thing, He's not the thing.
Uh, oh my God, have you seen John Krasinski now, Nick? Yes, he's quite buff now because his Jack Ryan version he super worked out.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like literally super spy
And I'm
levels.
sorry, even in the office days, he still wasn't lanky.
Yeah, yeah.
He was still squarish in terms of body frame.
Mm-mm.
Thick, the lanky figure pa sa office would be what, Ryan?
That's sad because he didn't have the height for it.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Um,
In terms of yummy to have on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, sure, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt would be a fantastic pairing. Um, who therefore would be your Johnny Storm?
I will admit it's so sad though to still like expect. I mean, because as weird as the other movies were, Chris Evans was very Johnny Storm.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, but also like all of his movies at the time, that's how he was. So I don't know. It needs definitely someone with a similar young energy. I don't know the current pool of actors enough to like think of someone. Um, I and I'm sorry that the Fantastic Four is very white, but I
Mhm.
don't think we can go with another black casting for Johnny Storm. Only if you're going to insist he's still the sister of Sue, then my only thing is that please make them the same race,
For me,
not adoptive.
I don't mind. I just how do I put it? Um, Johnny Johnny works when he's hot but looks dumb.
Mm,
And
okay,
the casting of what's his name, Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, he didn't look dumb. He
Yeah.
just looked hot,
Mm,
and that didn't work for me.
okay. Okay.
So, because the thing about Johnny is he's really not the smart guy in the bunch, and you sort of have to see that he gets passed because he's cute.
And and he's not
Ben
smart, and then he's
Platt,
impulsive.
Ben
Well,
Nick
because Ben Platt, they keep making him play teenagers.
Ben Platt's Mole Man.
Oh my God, you're so terrible.
Justin Bieber as Johnny Storm.
Maybe a few years ago.
No, Justin Bieber would be better as Bentley.
This is why we don't do casting episodes.
Zac Efron,
No.
especially not after the the injection issue.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He looks very different now. He looks much closer to Baywatch actor. If you see his picture now,
Hasselhoff, you're saying?
yeah, he looks very Hasselhoff. If you look at it, it's kind of spooky.
Okay. So yeah, so I don't know who we're left with. Like that's why I feel like I wouldn't mind if it's someone totally new and surprises us. And like, oh, okay, I don't know who this person is, and it turns out you're a great Johnny Storm, you know. So I don't know. We deliberately have been looking at all the rumors, speculations of who's gonna get cast. We'll just wait for when the trailer comes out, I guess, for Fantastic Four.
I would not mind a Black Fantastic Four in the sense of if they maintain the story. That's why they had to sneak off and test the rocket because they wouldn't be allowed to do so,
Mm.
and this and that. That's sort of an angle na um, they had to take matters into their own hands.
Mark cheekily points out that Zac Efron is a Baywatch actor because he was in that Baywatch movie.
Yeah, and I think the last time you'll see him still looking the way we liked him in terms of his appearance would be Down to Earth.
Yeah, that weird Netflix whatever series. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yung mga natalo ni Tom Holland, so that would be sila Jamie Bell, sila ganon. Possible.
Mm.
Possible.
Pum pum pum.
Oh, I know now who could be
I'm scared.
Human Torch.
I don't know. Okay, who?
Um,
Oh no, Toby has to remember the name. He just has a picture in his head.
yes,
Go tell me movies. It's the guy in that thing.
the hunk in the series with the Indian girl.
The hunk with the in Never Have I Ever.
Yes.
The Japanese guy.
No, her himbo, the one she ends up with.
Yun nga.
Oh, yeah, he's Japanese. You're right,
He's Japanese in
Yeah.
the series.
So yeah,
That guy,
he can be a Johnny Storm.
I guess.
He has the angas. He has
and
the
he looks dumb enough.
he can look dumb in the sense of playing the role.
No, not Noah Centineo. No.
No, Noah would be Noah would be Iron Lad.
Don't do bad by Iron Lad that way. To get the name, is it this guy?
Yeah.
Darren Charles Barnett, because he was Paxton, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's him.
Darren Barnett. Double checking, yeah, that guy. Okay, yeah, I could kind of see it. Okay.
Did you write the name? So
And then, Clea says, "What if is it like Rachel Evan Woods in Westworld, and she can play Sue?"
only if she was Malice. Because Rachel Woods is kinda, she's evil. I have plans evil now, right? The way she has the
And she won't look young anymore, though. I mean, like, should be fair, there's all like this de-aging stuff that's going on now for movies when they need to adjust. But it, I don't know. I guess the question is, because are we gonna get another freaking Fantastic Four origin story?
Mhm.
It's like, oh my god, I don't know. Are we gonna live through another? I think, in all honesty, given my priorities in life,
Mhm.
I practically don't even care who the Fantastic Four are gonna be. I just care what they're gonna do to Doctor Doom this time around. If they're gonna skip it entirely and not do,
An origin story.
or was this not do Doctor Doom in the new movie? I don't know if that'll make me happy.
I would have them show up and their opening line is why is the world broken?
Mm.
And then we have flashback sequences of them involved in different parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the background and us not seeing them.
Okay, that's cute.
So, like, they show up and you have the teams all staring and they're looking around and, Reed mutters, parang, you broke the world. And then we have a montage as they explain that they've been gone handling this and that because time broke and they had to try to fix it. And we see snippets of Age of Ultron. We see snippets of this and that, and we see them in the background helping and that, but they were never the big story, so they were never the focus. Because unlike the Eternals, who had a stupid reason not to be part of things, I think they should have been there. And then I think when they ask, but where did you guys come from? We'll just have a silent flashback moment of them staring, and then we have a metal doom mask that's smoking. And then they just mention, we'd rather not talk about it.
Okay, that's
So-
convenient.
So we can save origin stories for later stuff when they finally
Yeah,
have...
because that's what we have. That's what we got with Spider-Man Homecoming.
Mhm.
Like, we didn't super deal with how did Spider-Man become Spider-Man anymore. It was just a given, but then we're still dealing with early adventures. So maybe, especially for all these like quote unquote returning properties from their other movie universes, maybe we just need to just dump into it.
Mhm.
Mitch, of course, asked the sad question of, "Are you happy with Doom for the 2005 movie?" No, there's been no good movie depiction of Doctor Doom to date, and they just got worse and worse.
Nick says, cast Doctor Doom. Who would be your Doctor Doom?
I don't. Again, I'm terrible at casting ideas because I can't think of people on the fly.
Just to annoy people, I'd make it the boss of the office. Because you want John Krasinski.
No.
So you have Michael Scott.
Should we just have Should we just have Tom Hardy again because he has a history of talking funny in a mask? Ah, Reed.
I feel so sad for Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy could have been so much
Reed
better.
Richards. I may be a symbiote. That was Hardy, right? I'm forgetting now. For Bane.
Bane,
Yeah.
Sadly, yeah.
Okay. Um,
The Infinity Stones will give the Fantastic Four powers. Lahat na lang Infinity Stones. Yeah, that's what I'm like so tired of na. I'm already done with the Infinity Stones.
and I think we've established with Loki, it's like everybody's done with the Infinity Stones. It's like we moved past this MacGuffin, we're throwing it away.
Would you be happy with the female Doom?
Depends. I mean, like it's I in in these jump to movie adaptation standards, I could take it. I think I don't care anymore who. I care about what makes this person do and what drives it. Because like what we haven't really seen done well in the movies is really him or Doom as a character. Let's say them in full like I am leader of a sovereign nation.
Mhm.
My mission. While he will always have some petty motivations of revenge against Richards personally,
Mhm.
but ultimately Doom's direction in life is I am saving the world from itself
Mhm.
by becoming its absolute ruler. That's Doom. That's and I have yet to see a Doom capture this, which is what frustrates me. Because Doom is like the ultimate, ridiculous extreme example of he does not see himself as a villain. He
Yeah.
is, he is saving the world despite itself. And I want that for Doom. Tom Ellis for Mr. Fantastic.
A very
Oh.
tall Mr. Fantastic.
Well, see, but I don't know. Because I didn't see him as Lucifer either. And then it's been a struggle.
You know who's an odd possible Mr. Fantastic for me? Only because he feels more dorky than heroic. Um,
Who, Toby? Who? Who are you thinking of? Let's play the game.
we'll have to go through the steps.
Okay, it's the guy.
First, it's the fun show we love that was a musical. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Okay, there, I got that.
Okay.
Now it was one of the boyfriends, the one at the bar.
They all went to the
No,
bar.
the one who works at the bar.
Okay, the decent one. Who is the one with musical background.
Yes,
Okay.
he could be Reed because he has that dorky. He has that dorkiness. But the thing is, he's try to be funny, and I don't think Reed should be funny.
Okay.
But I could sort of see him as a Reed Richards.
I guess that could work. And then for people who don't play the game with us, it's Santino. What's his name? Santino Fontana.
Mhm.
Santino Fontana. So not Josh.
Henry Cavill as Doom, that would be scary because we'd all root for him.
But then, okay, do you really want it to be Henry Cavill?
'Cause he'll
Because
be a
he's going to
mask.
be covered up in an armor.
No,
and
he
a mask.
might not even have the armor, but he'll always have the mask on.
Eh,
That would be so
kasi If they
annoying.
don't give him armor, they're just going to paint
But
him
it's-
metal again,
but
like
it's
what they
pointless.
did with
It's pointless when they show Henry Cavill's body and he's shaved.
Yeah. Santino Rice. Okay.
Anthony Hopkins could have done it. You know, I wouldn't mind. No, wait, actually, no. Anthony Hopkins is a bit too old.
No, I prefer Anthony Hopkins as Nathaniel Richards,
Yes, I was about to say.
complete with time traveling armor.
Yes. And then, then he's.
Everyone is Kang. I have a picture of that. It's like Nathaniel Richards in he's had different time traveling suits over
Eh,
the
kung
years.
ganon, di si ano na dapat si ano. Doom can be ano.
You're gonna make him the priest.
Yes. Andrew Scott.
No,
Andrew Scott as Doom.
I can't imagine. Hello. He's already our archetype for
But his neck.
our primogen
Oh,
of
his neck.
the Tremar clan in our vampire game, and it distracts me every time when I think about him popping his head. Oh, hello! I'm just researching this blood ritual. Just doing magical
Henry Cavill
things.
as Doom will be shirtless, just a cape, a metal mask, gloves, boots, metallic reflective spandex underwear.
I think you just described the new pit crew for the next edition of Drag Race. Three different actors as Kang. Why stop at three? You need more. Okay, so Idris Elba. Ooh, I mean, it's always like it's fun to make him do things, but I don't know. I think he's already done too many things that it's a distraction.
The guy from Homeland, the CIA agent.
Mitch, but Homeland is about the CIA. Who are you talking about?
Rich has become me.
It's like saying, yung ER, yung doctor. Mitch, you need to be a bit more specific.
Idris was hot in Suicide Squad. That's true.
With his I have the ultimate Lego gun ever.
Mm.
Okay. Ah. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yung actor sa movie. Exactly, Mark. Yung actor sa movie. Yung CIA agent sa Homeland.
So, I would also be open to an older Fantastic Four.
I was thinking about that too, because then you get to pull in things like Anthony Hopkins. So I guess if we're super done with always redoing Ultimate Timelines, are we doing Earth X?
Okay, so John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, so they're older, right? They're
Okay.
not the young heroes.
Yes.
But then we have older teen or young adult Franklin and Valeria.
Mm.
So they're the ones that are closer to the current roster of heroes in terms of
Okay.
age.
Yeah.
And then for Doom, we have Keanu Reeves.
No, don't do that to Doom. Don't do this to me. How are you? How are you, my partner? Don't do this.
But he won't speak.
Can you imagine even the slightest utterance of Nikki, of course, asking the dad sa Rogue One. Si Mads? That's Mads, no?
Yeah. Mads for Doom. I don't know.
But kasi the
We already had him sa Doctor Strange.
yeah, he was already a villain there. And then which is we're throwing a lot of old names for Doom. But then think that what's this? Doom will always be the parallel of Reed. So
Adam Driver pwede.
sanay na
pwede.
siya na may mask.
Sanay na siyang may scar. Who was the number 2 younger guy who did number 2 in Austin Powers?
Oh, that was in the second Austin movie. Oh, I can't remember. Wait. I mean, oh my God, you're making me Google. The Spy Who Shagged Me.
So number
and
2,
then
Rob Lowe.
Rob Lowe. Okay, he's
Or-
not
or
that
the
young
other one,
anymore.
Or the other one.
No, but he was young number 2.
Well, then again, even if Anthony Hopkins wasn't Thor, so
Variants, guys. They're all variants. I don't know. Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird? So then this is why I don't do casting things too much in my head, because then I'm like, I like people in certain incarnations and in certain incarnations of them or like moments in time, but then like now I don't know. In this weird pandemic year of I don't even know what movies we've seen. Like we think things are just Gwendolyn Christie as Galactus. Why not? Do you want the new Fantastic Four movie to be a Galactus movie?
no.
I don't think it makes sense although we're already dealing with the Celestials and the Eternals to some degree. I don't know if we're
Oh.
prepping the road
Oh,
work there.
you know what'd be great?
What?
If the first Fantastic Four movie
Of the MCU.
is the trial of Reed Richards. And
Okay.
we see it open and they're there. And that's the they killed Galactus. And that's why they've been gone.
Okay. Okay. It's scary. It's scary. Very
And
possible.
then it opens with that scene where they're like being tried, and then as punishment, and then people start turning to ash. So they're like panicking, wondering what's happened. And then we fast forward to people are back, and Reed was talking to the others, and we have to go back to Earth. Something must have happened.
Mm.
So that would be a nice way to bring it in.
Wow, Nikki has an interesting casting. Leonardo DiCaprio as Reed Richards and Christian Bale as Victor. What if it's the other way around?
No, Leonardo DiCaprio does have an older feel now. Remember?
No, but parang I want him more as a villain.
Yeah, no, but he does work as a villain
Yeah.
because of he has that face.
He has
na
this
parang,
this natural like pointiness to him.
yeah.
Mm, mm. Okay.
That does work. I would then cast Gwendolyn Christie as the Thing.
As the Thing. Okay.
She would make an awesome Thing.
Mm, mm. Okay. Mark suggesting maybe they can do a sort of century everyone forgot the world's greatest hero story. That's always an angle. Or I don't know if the low hanging fruit, because which is what a lot of people are speculating, is that it's just gonna be a multiverse thing.
Yeah,
Like
they're trapped in the multiverse.
we're dealing with a multiverse, an alternate multiverse version of the Fantastic Four crossing over into the MCU.
Yes, Nick, Sharon Ventura Thing. And you know what would be awesome with Gwendolyn Christie as the Thing? We can then cast Fleabag as Alicia Masters.
Oh my god. Why? Why?
They just, have this nice spark. And they're both tall. What?
Okay. Okay.
And then Alicia Masters would be very Fleabagish. You're so. I'm sorry. And the Thing is like, really? I could see that working. Ooh, that would be nice.
So silly. So silly.
See, now I want to see that movie.
You may continue to do so in your head.
Okay. Will you want support cast?
Define.
Will there be a Herbie? Will there
I
be?
think Herbie has to appear but doesn't need a speaking role. Like there has to be a flying robot, but he doesn't have to be a fully AI robot. I think we don't need Herbie. Miranda Hart doesn't to be in the movie.
No, Miranda Hart will be.
Will be the front door guard at the Baxter Building. Hello. And you have a big costume villain wander in and do you want to see a lawyer? It's like, oh, you're here for the Fantastic Four. Okay, yes, wonderful. Okay. Oh my god, where are we going? Supporting cast.
Miranda Hart would be a herald of Galactus,
Oh my god.
and it would be Miranda Hart. That's you floundered. That's a nice word. And then she just digresses to that and starts singing. And we have the team parang, are you accusing us of something? Yes.
Yes, no, manakwe, but there is something. It's
But-
bad. It's
but
bad.
sobrang-
It's quite bad.
It's sobrang alien trying to be human. I love it. That was so work.
Miranda Hart as the
And-
impossible woman.
And she's Therax.
Oh my god. Therax, as among the heralds, Therax is just weird because he was literally like,
Earth.
I have earth and earthquake powers
Mhm.
with an axe, and I didn't quite get that. I appreciated Nova when she escalated into a herald. Oh my god, was freaking beautiful.
Mm.
With like my massive hair is fire.
Yeah, but can you imagine Miranda Hart as Therax talking about the Silver Surfer? cheeky.
It has come to this. Miranda Hart has invaded the MCU. And
Yes.
has totally taken over all of our ideas for the Fantastic Four movie. It's Miranda. Miranda is Galactus.
Alexander.
Skarsgård as Silver Surfer, but no trunks. My gosh. Okay. Mark asked the question of whether to digitally put in a CGI Stanley cameo.
I
don't.
hope not.
I hope not.
I really hope not.
I think any future Stanley cameos are just gonna be like elements in the background or things.
Like his name.
His
on the
name,
wall.
his or even just photos, maybe. But then like, full CGI thing. I don't
Disturbing.
know. It's
just
weird. It's like I don't even like the Tarkin, the CGI Tarkin. It's so bad. Yeah. Okay. So where to go from here? If you're interested though in suddenly Tristan joined us on YouTube and suddenly Claire Foy and Matt Smith as Sue and Reed. I'm trying to imagine. It's interesting.
I'm only interested in that because when they bump into the Guardians of the Galaxy, there'd be that moment of Nebula staring at Reed. You look familiar. Are you a doctor?
Matt Smith could be interesting. It's like,
Yeah, Matt Smith could work.
but you'll have to do an American accent. But to be fair, British actors are better at American accents than American actors are at British accents.
But then I wouldn't mind a British Fantastic Four.
To make it different.
To again also push why they weren't allowed to do this and that.
And he's going to be their first movie is a time travel adventure. In a fantastic car that is predominantly blue.
Pasok na natin yung ponds. Edi hilahin na natin si what's his name. Who went to Something of Tomorrow? Legends of Tomorrow.
Rory.
Yeah.
It's like he has no real name. He's just Rory. Okay. Ponds. All right. So given all that, like if you wanted to recommend people to like if you want to read about the Fantastic Four, where would you send people to go? Dun dun dun. Because I will be the first to say I don't recommend the ongoing series. Not because it's bad, but it relies on a lot of like the current writer is Slott, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
it's Dan Slott, who same thing when he was doing Spider-Man, wonderful ability to like celebrate very niche aspects of the comic book line. Hence, he did like that story where it was all about the very first rocket that caused everything and the planet they were trying to go to, and they finally go to that planet. So that's like deep cuts. So the ongoing series for me is hard for new fans to get into.
And it's the same as the Morrison run of X-Men, and they rely on the reader recognizing references to really appreciate the story. So then as much as the Morrison run, for example, is great, it still also is not one I'd recommend to a new X-Men reader.
Mark says the Future Foundation. The Future Foundation is solid. I love the run. I just don't know if people will appreciate it as much. Also,
because the Future Foundation jumps into one issue, suddenly it's the Alien Council. Next issue, suddenly it's
literally the very composition of the Future Foundation is a reflection of the history of the Fantastic Four. Because you have mole people, you have the clone of the wizard, all these things. So that's something. There was this oh my god, what was the name of the book? It had a 4 in it. Sorry. Fantastic Four Problems.
1, 2, 3, 4, the one with J.
Maybe, but as a one shot. Well, to be fair, I think I keep saying to be fair. I'm so annoyed now when I realize how often I say it. The Hickman run is still not terrible. I mean, like it's not that difficult to get into. It was like a great example of sort of the super science stories as things can go. So I think that's still not a bad starting point. and then I have to recap like the John Byrne run, what happened in John Byrne, because I suspect that's the '90s run, so
Mm.
that's hard, and I don't know if I want the Wade run either. Yeah. Nikki wants to get his hands on the X-Men Fantastic Four crossover.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the Terrigen Mists one. Ah, sorry.
No,
No,
there's a more recent one.
that's the Franklin. That's the Franklin is a mutant one.
Yeah, I read it recently. I read it. It's interesting. And then this has been totally invalidated by the ongoing Fantastic Four series. I will not explain why on this video, but then we can chat about it. Just so that I don't wanna. Maybe some people haven't read it. That's okay. Even though even I read comics like a year after they come out because I wait for them to be on sale. So um Gugu Mambatha Raw from Loki. Ooh, I have to see who that is. And Black Mirror could play Sue Storm. Okay. Problem with recommending Fantastic Four runs is not one arc pops out except Hipman. Okay, Mark. And then on this note, I agree with you. Which is like I never really invested into Fantastic Four until Toby was like, you have to read the Hickman run. Because a lot of it was just like ongoing Fantastic Fourness.
So I think I'd recommend Visionaries, which is the Walter Simonson Volume 1 trade paperback. So that's the one which ends with the Thing fighting Reed through time. But
okay.
it's also the one wherein they fight a giant robot Stalin.
Oh, I remember that one.
They
Okay.
fight dinosaurs. They have to build giant guns against the Nullifier, and you have Thor riding with them on that sled.
Okay, so that's
That would be that story arc.
that's a cool run. That's a cool run. Okay, okay.
And it also had the Time Variance Authority, because that was the main antagonist they were dealing with also.
Yes, yes. Yeah, Mark was like the Stanley older ones usually get mentioned, but it's a slog reading now. I totally agree. I even just I still have this long running project of I'm trying to read every single Amazing Spider-Man, but I can only do it in limited bursts because it was just a different time, and it's just hard. It's hard reading now, and a little archaic. The one with Doom and Magneto. Not sure about that one, unless it's the ongoing one. But yeah, there's a 2020 X-Men Fantastic Four. But yeah, it was centered around Franklin. So I don't know if that's the one you're talking about. But that's the one I read. If anything. Oh, it's pre-Krakoa. Okay, no, this one's totally Krakoa, the one we read. The one I read. So I'm not sure which one that is. Bum, bum, bum. So isn't that funny though? Because like obviously the most iconic arcs are things like the Galactus saga, and then even things like the Kree Skrull War, which spans across, was more Avengers.
Mhm.
But there was like the Fantastic Four running with the Skrulls, and the one where they get turned into cows. It's like, blah. So it's just funny that way.
They were always treated more as support, and then it was only in their main titles that they were the leads.
Mm. Players like tried reading the Kirby Eternals. It was kind of boring. Yeah, it's different reading for today's reader. The Game and Eternals one was a bit better, but was still like trying to be true to the Kirby-esque line, so the stories were a bit rough. Okay. Oh my god, it's a 70s run. Okay. Which one's that? I don't remember that one. Anyway. So I think our conclusion now is like, ooh, Fantastic Four, a little hard to recommend, and the stories that are closest to our heart are probably the
Okay.
90s ones.
I found the link on that fight through time.
Oh my god.
So you'll see here there's time codes, and then if you follow that, you'll see the different flow of the fight they are having. I'll share it in the comments for those who want to read it.
That's cool. I will get back to that. But who wrote that one?
If I remember Simonson.
Yeah, you mentioned. Okay. Which I may not have. In like I've bought
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
like
Walter Simonson.
I have very carefully purchased a few Fantastic Four volumes of Comixology when they go on sale. But then it's overwhelming at how many books there
Yeah,
are.
I posted the initial link, which is the issue that leads to that other one. So you
Mm.
might want to check those out.
Mm.
Yeah, so I guess that would be my choice.
That's a cool one. That's a cool one.
Beyond that,
See, I have the
others are-
Visionaries one also.
Mm-mm.
I have the Visionaries books, and then which ends in it's John Byrne yung Visionaries.
Mhm.
And then I have some of these epic ones because like okay, I buy books because they were celebrating Doctor Doom, so I got those.
Now, I guess to close for me, when
Okay.
it comes to the Ultimate Universe, I did not like Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Mm.
I liked Ultimate Avengers. Well, the Ultimates. Ultimate X-Men was kind of wobbly for me also.
Mm. Mm.
I however, did enjoy Doom 2099.
Oh, we're gonna talk about Doom 2099. Hold the phone.
We
This
have
needs an
to.
episode. I love Doom 2099. Doom 2099 was like the best for me. Was one of the best of the 2099 books. And this is coming from a Spider-Man fan who bought Spider-Man 2099
Which wasn't so bad
with the glossy cover. But it was a lot harder to get into
because they really, they gave him
they made him an alien.
talons
Yeah,
and all
yeah, yeah.
that.
And organic webbing and all
Yeah.
these things. But Doom 2099, the premise was just fascinating because you have a time traveling Doom, and then he doesn't have all of his memories, and then he gets, despite his high tech suit, he gets totally defeated by just some boss of a megacorp, right?
Mhm.
And then from this, he slowly rebuilds himself and he finds himself among the gypsies first, and the gypsies help him catch up with the times. And then um, he goes on to reconquer Latveria. And then later on, he goes on to conquer the world again because he will, again, this is Doom saying that the best thing for the world is him.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So, I didn't realize Ellis wrote later.
Yeah, the third part.
Okay, okay. I will probably say Dune a lot whenever I mention Doom because it's always on my mind these days. I will concede this fact, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Mark's like Doom 2099 where you're never sure if he's really Doom or not. Yes, because in the very first issue, they reveal that he does not have a scarred face. And this is actually what the Megacorp boss does. It was Tyler Stone, I think.
Although
He
that was
disfigures him.
although that was one of the things they toyed with also in the main line. That
Yes.
he isn't really scarred. He just sees himself as scarred.
Yeah, or he's already fixed it, like
Mm.
because he's super smart.
But he's like,
so why would he not fix it
Mm.
and all these things? So I super love Doom 2099, and then it had everything from depicting surfing the internet as literally surfing,
Mhm.
which is like how 90s can you get depicting it, and then um, and the tone of the Dune books, which is so different from all the other 2099 stuff. There
Mm.
was an elegance to it. He was on this crusade in a way, and then once he conquers America and then brings the megacorps under line, and then eventually this is also his downfall again. So ah chef kiss and all that. I love Doom 299.
Clea, we had an episode on Dune. You might want to check it out and look for that episode.
And we're gonna do more. And like we're obviously we're waiting for the movie to come out. We've covered our different games about it. We
Mm-mm.
have covered the earlier movie attempts, and then we've talked about the trailers for the new one. It's on my mind a lot. Like as we mentioned on Twitter, like I'm trying to remind myself to be cautious because as a Dune fan, we have been burned many a time by weird adaptations, and so this new one, I don't know yet, but I'm very excited.
So going back to the cinematic universe to wrap it up,
Yes.
I'm hoping if they are building the can, that they take advantage of having him appear in the different incarnations.
Mm-hmm.
So like for the Ironheart story, maybe we see Iron Lad. For Fantastic Four, maybe they end up working with Ramatot or something.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah,
So we sort of see him in his different incarnations throughout time.
that could be cool.
and that would allow a big reveal in the end. But I
It's
doubt
all
they'll do
one
that.
person. But yeah, that's a bit big of a show. And I don't know if they can seed Kang as long as they seeded Doom. Doom. Seeded Thanos. What the hell was that? All right. So, right, because Thanos was like a build up
Night, Mike.
across so many
Mm.
movies. I don't know if the pacing of the ongoing phases for the MCU will follow that format, because that takes a bit too long. And because the reason why that was so delayed, because they had to introduce so many characters
Yeah.
and teams. I don't think they're gonna go that route, but we'll see. We'll see. The shape of Phase 4 is not clear to me, but I feel like it's very likely that Kang may not be a Thanos level threat within Phase 4,
Mhm.
so to speak. Like, we'll see how that goes.
All right. So I think that covers everything we can for now about the Fantastic Four. We have been talking for more than 2 hours, but we are so grateful that you all joined us for this episode.
We didn't talk about it for 4 hours.
And we hope you'll join us again next time.
Hi. For questions or suggestions for future episodes, you can fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. We haven't really dive this deep into a comic in a while, so if you like this sort of thing, let us know if there are other franchises you want to tackle. We may not be absolute experts all the time, but between us and what we read, we're bound to have covered it. So
Yes.
yeah. And then you can follow us on Twitter, Altobino Shade, RG Suniko.
You could also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below and let us know what you think about the Fantastic Four. What are your favorite incarnations or stories, and why is it Malice? Let us know. And be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy
Pride.